What's up YouTube? This is No More Op4 here with part 3A of my Bivouac gear loadout series. This section is going to cover weather for the colder months of the year, my cold weather clothing. Obviously clothing is an important consideration whenever you're outside in the environment, and inefficiencies here can mean the difference between a good trip and a really bad trip. Surprisingly, there are a lot of people that make mistakes when planning around this, and they suffer, their trip suffers because of that. So we're going to go over just some basics of the different types of clothing that I wear in cold weather scenarios, basically the colder months of the year, fall, late fall into early spring. And what I'm going to cover here is nothing groundbreaking, but it's going to be good for someone who might be new into this, or someone who's been out of it for a while and is not aware of some of the newer options that are available to you. So the first layer that we're going to talk about, obviously, is the base layer. I don't want to say it's the most important area. All of the layers are important, but if you screw up here, the rest can kind of be a moot point. So it's good that you get this right. Start off on the right foot, as it were. With base layers, your primary quality that you should be looking for in a base layer is the ability to wick moisture away from your body. Obviously, you're going to be exerting yourself when you're out there, and you want the sweat that you're going to be sweating. You want that sweat to be able to wick away from your body with the clothing, so that you can dry faster and not have a soaked base layer. With the base layer options, you have a lot today on the market. There are many different options out there. I'm going to show you a couple that I have here. First, we'll start with some of the lighter weight ones. Before Under Armour had heat gear and cold gear and all these different fancy names, there was just Under Armour. And this is a pair of bottoms from that generation of clothing I've still got. This is probably 10 years old, had a lot of heavy use. You can use it for anything, if you play sports in the winter months, you can use it for that, or in the colder months I should say, also skiing and things like that. But it's got a purpose in the outdoor activities as well, because it's lightweight and it's thin, and it does have that moisture wicking capability. Here is a top. Again, before the heat or cold gear came out, there was just Under Armour. This is a top version of that. And then obviously the compression shorts, never leave home without them. But this is actual cold gear, but this is Nike's version of it. This is the Nike Pro, and I believe it says right on here, dry fit. And again, it's got the moisture wicking capability, but it's also got a nice inner layer that has some warming capability to it. And that is obviously something that's good. I can usually get away in the winter months, unless it's really cold, with just the top and bottom. And especially on the bottoms, I usually don't wear an insulating layer on the bottom unless it's under like 10 degrees Fahrenheit. But these are great. They wick the moisture away from your body. They're also soft and comfortable on your skin. You do want to keep that in mind. You don't want to have an uncomfortable base layer where you're just going to be uncomfortable throughout the whole trip. Besides the moisture wicking capabilities, breathability is also something that you want in this, but usually if it's moisture wicking, it's also breathable. Wind and warmth protection are also things to look for, but you don't want to sacrifice mobility for this, because really the layers that are going to be warming you should be your insulating layers. These primarily should be just for wicking the moisture away from your body. So you will want a tighter sport fit, but you don't want to be bunching up to the point that you have trouble moving and you look like a snowman. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're looking for base layers. Next area we're going to cover is the insulating layer. This layer is what I use primarily to adapt to whatever the situation is. So as I stop moving around and I'm not in times of high activity, I will put this layers on, or if it's times of high activity when I am working, I will take these layers off. A lot of times I don't even wear these layers on the way into wherever I'm going, because I may be cold for the first 3 minutes, but once the blood starts working, there's really no reason to have this layer on. Keep them dry, keep them clean in your pack. You don't need to have a lot of these layers. One pair of tops and one pair of bottoms for a medium, couple day trip. It should really be all that you need. Maybe 2 pairs, depending on what you're getting yourself into. But let me show you a couple options I have here. Some of my favorites. The primary goal for this, or the primary quality you should be looking for, is really just the ability to provide warmth. My favorite during the day is this REI Polar Tech. It's 97% polyester and 3% spandex, I believe it is. Yes. So this is a very warm garment of clothing to wear. A lot of times, again, I'm not going to put this on unless it's nighttime or I'm doing a very low energy activity. Maybe I'm fishing or something like that. This is when a material like this would be put on. Sleeping is another good one. Obviously you want to stay warm at night. What I'll typically wear at night is polypropylene. This is Rothko's brand, top and bottoms. Polypro, again, it's very warm, and I like these at night. They just keep me warm, and they're very comfortable too. A lot of times what I'll do is I won't wear the same thing that I wore during the day to bed. It's just kind of a morale booster. After you had a hard day in the woods, putting on a fresh pair of polypropylene and going to sleep, you'll fall asleep faster and you'll have a better day the next day. Obviously, got a fleece here too. Also, warming qualities here, comfortable. I've worn this out many times. Depending on what the conditions are, if it's just snowing, or if it's not snowing, I should say. Something like this even may be able to take your outer layer off and just wear something like this. I've done that in the past. So again, as with the base layer, the insulating layer should be a tighter fit, but you should not be decreasing mobility. You really just want something that's warm, that if wet will dry fast, and you just want it to be comfortable. That's it for insulating layers. Let's move on to the outer layer. So this is it. The last layer between you and that bitch Mother Nature. Don't screw it up now. The outer layer is obviously very important, and there are a lot of different opinions, I guess, when it comes to what your outer layer should be. In my opinion, water and windproof is a must for the outer layer. One other recommendation that I have is to either have the option to attach a hood or have a hood built into the jacket. The thickness is really what I'm referring to when I say that there's different opinions on what an outer layer should be. I'm kind of the mindset for most activities. I prefer, to be honest, a thinner outer layer. I would rather have additional layers that I'd be able to put on than have one really big, thick outer layer that decreases your mobility. And also, when you have a thicker outer layer, it kind of decreases or limits your ability to layer underneath because it's so thick. Now, the jackets that I do like that are bigger, because of that, are the 3-in-1s, such as this. This is an older jacket. This is a Challenge series by Columbia. Again, it's a 3-in-1, so it's got this inner fleece layer. It's obviously got the outer layer here. It's still got a ski pass on here. This is what I wear to ski because I'm not, I'm physically exerting myself, but I'm not really going to be taking off or adding additional layers. I'm kind of be at the same activity level the whole time. But this is a good jacket. It's very, very nice for wind and water protection. Obviously, it's designed for, being in snow. It's a good jacket, and again, as I said, having the ability to attach a hood to the jacket is also nice. On the opposite end of the spectrum, though, a little bit of a thinner layer, more designed for layering, is this Condor jacket. This is the Condor, I believe it's called the Soft Summit Shell. Basically, wind, waterproof again, very nice price point, under $100 on this jacket. It's very nice quality workmanship. on the jacket. And the other thing that I like on this jacket, again, referring to the hood, is there's a built-in hood in the collar, which is nice because you can just basically roll it up, tuck it in, and zip it away when you don't need it. And when you do, it's as simple as just unzipping it and rolling it out. So those are my two top outer layers. My base layers the outer layers for the bottoms are a little bit different here. What I typically use, I've got 3 examples here. First one, these are basically just ECW pants, ECW CS. They are basically just a wind and waterproof outer layer that go over top of an under pair of pants. I actually don't really use these for the winter time that much. I usually prefer these for like a fall or a spring when it's raining because they don't have any insulating properties. They're very thin, but they're great for water protection, so I just thought I'd include them because I know there are some people that like to wear jeans or sweatpants as like an insulating layer sort of. So these are a good option for those type of people. But if you're like me and you really just wear base layers and outer layers on the bottoms, these will probably make more sense for you. This is an insulated pant. This is from the North Face. These are the Freedom pant. They are pretty warm. I think it's 60 gram insulation on these. You don't really need to warm your legs that much, but for those colder days, you know, these are a great option. And then conversely, almost the exact same pair of pants. These are actually a snowboard brand. This is Burton. These are Burton pants. This is an uninsulated pant, basically the same thing without the insulation compared to the North Face pants. Both of these are good because they're extremely water resistant, or waterproof I should say, and they have wind protection as well, so they'll stop those wind shears coming at you and going right through your clothes into your bones. So those are good options for the bottoms. Now we're going to take a look at just some final touches, socks, and head and hand protection. Next section we're going to talk about is head protection. And keeping or retaining heat lost through your head is something that's very important. You know, your head losing heat through your body is not a wives' tale. That's 100% true. The capillaries on your head have so much blood flowing through them and it's so close to the surface, that's what causes the heat to radiate away from your head. And that's why wearing a hat or some sort of cap will keep you a lot warmer than if you were just going around without one. So obviously I've got a couple different options here. Something just as simple as a watch cap, tassel cap, whatever you call it, to put on is usually good. I prefer the tassel cap, it's just kind of my style. And those are good options for keeping your head warm. Some other things, if you've got, you know, sensitive skin and you're susceptible to the winds, or it's really cold and there's a lot of wind blowing, you want to have something like a neck protector or a balaclava. I don't have one here. I really don't wear those too often. But if you're trying to protect your face, those are a good option. Also, it's good to kind of protect you if you've got a lot of ticks or you know, briars and things like that, other nasties that are, if you live in woods like I do, you know, those are a real pain in the ass. So having something on your face or protecting your face will stop you from getting a lot of scratches or ticks in your beard. But I've also got two these are chamois. Now this is typically something for you know, warmer weather, protecting against sun and wind. But if it's dry conditions but it's really windy, occasionally I'll wear one of these because I really don't like to have my face covered too much. But if it's really windy, these are a good option to have because they do protect well against the wind. They aren't that warming. If you're looking for something to warm your face, again, you do want to go with a balaclava. Next section, hand protection. Cold hands suck, period. You've got to have a good pair of gloves. Most of the time, cold weather, I can get away, if I'm doing activity or some sort, I can get away with a thin pair like this. These are wind and waterproof. They are, the brand is, I believe it's pronounced Cyrus. They're a great option. Low price point, under 30 bucks. Don't need to spend $80 for a pair of gloves with a nice brand name on it. There are a lot of different brands of nice gloves out there. But these are great. Again, they're wind and waterproof. Unless I'm really getting my hands wet or I'm dealing with a lot of snow, I won't have to upgrade to a heavier pair of gloves. But in my opinion, the definition of a great pair of gloves is something that you can tie rope with or tie your shoes with, and these are a good pair. I reference these in my A-frame video series. But if I am dealing with a lot of snow or my hands are really wet, if it's one of those temperature points where the snow is melting and everything is slushy, I will use a pair like this. This is, the brand is again Foursquare. This is a snowboard glove, but it's good for outdoor activities as well. It's got good grip control. I really don't like fleece gloves, but I do have pairs of those. Usually I wear these for hunting. These are a pair designed for shooting, obviously, because they have no fingertips on them. But what you can do is when you're not shooting at something, you can put the little mitt over top. So these are good options for if you're really sitting still and just trying to keep your hands warm. But pairs like this are good for when you still need to be dexterous with your hands, if you're doing fine or intricate work. But they will keep your hands warm or dry in those really cold or really wet circumstances. Hand warmers are obviously a great tool. They're small, they're lightweight. You can also use them at night. Tuck them up under your armpits like this, and that'll help keep you warm. It's just a tip I've learned. But a good pair of gloves, again, is essential out there. Do some research, and I strongly suggest you also check out this brand. It's S-E-I-R-U-S, I believe it's pronounced Cyrus. Last section we're going to talk about before I go over some general points is footwear or foot protection. And as with cold hands, cold feet also suck, but can have a lot more severe consequences if you don't protect your feet. You don't want to lose any toes. General rule of thumb, always have a pair of liner socks in addition to your outer layer of socks, and always have multiple pairs of socks. Get your feet wet, accidentally step in something that was a little bit deeper than you thought it was, and get your socks wet. You want to have backups because cold feet is a miserable experience. This is just a mid-weight hunting sock, and this is then my heavier layer of wool hunting socks that I use. Very good for winter outdoor activities of any kind. Got a pair of issue socks as well. These are a little bit lighter weight. I usually don't wear these in the really cold months. I'll go with something like this. But obviously it's also important to have a good boot to go along with the sock, and there are a lot of options today. This is Irish Setter brand. These are 1,000 gram Thinsulate insulation, and that's in my opinion really the highest you want to go. I don't know, after a certain point in time with the Thinsulate, I feel like the grams kind of, it's just there to get you to pay a little bit extra. I don't know how much it's actually doing for you. But between 400 to 1,000 I should say, is a pretty good amount of insulation. You just have to base this on what you're doing. Because these are hunting shoes or hunting boots, typically it's very cold weather when I'm wearing these and I'm not moving around a lot, so I want the extra weight. And speaking on that, sometimes when I'll go out, I'll also have a thinner pair on and then put the heavier pair on once I get where I'm going, because your feet are going to sweat, especially in these 1,000 grams. Your feet will sweat, and no matter how much insulation protection you have, if your feet or the socks get wet and then you stop moving, they're going to get cold really fast. So a lot of times I will switch to a heavier pair of socks once I get where I'm going so my feet aren't soaked. But these are good, they're waterproof, and you also want to consider the tread. Depending on the amount of snow you have, you may want to consider looking at snowshoes. I'm really not in an area where I have to deal with really high amounts of a base layer of snow or even fresh powder, so that's usually not a concern for me. But if you are in the market or for a pair of snowshoes, you want to make sure they fit on the boot that you're going to wear too. So something to keep in mind for foot protection. Lastly, I just want to go over a couple points for keeping in mind whenever you're getting your gear loadout ready for your clothing. The first thing that I want to stress is that you should stay away from cotton. Waterlogged clothes is never a good thing, and cotton can take a really long time to dry. It's just not a good material for wearing outdoors. Next thing I wanted to just say was don't underestimate the danger of continuing to wear a pair of wet socks. Your feet can get hypothermia fast, can cause blisters more easily, and that can make moving very difficult. You don't want to have wet socks if you can help it. Always have spares. And just going along that same line, don't submerge yourself underwater unless it's absolutely necessary. If you know that you're going to have to cross some sort of stream or something to get where you're going, have a pair of waders. If something comes up and you have to cross water or you have to get yourself wet for some reason, what you want to do is, actually this is going to sound counterintuitive, but it's really the best way to do this. If you have to get really wet, it's better to take off the layers of clothing, as many layers as you can, maybe even just down to your base layer or a pair of compression shorts. It's going to be cold, but go through the water, keeping your clothes dry above your head. As soon as you get out onto the other side, build a fire as fast as you can, dry yourself off, and don't put your clothes back on until your body is dry. Another point, again, as I said earlier, but I want to stress this, don't wear every item of clothing that you have on the way out to where you're going. You may be cold the first couple minutes, but once you start hiking and carrying all your gear, you're going to warm up pretty quick. So you don't need to be cumbersome and walking like a snowman. Lastly, just the final point here, if an item does get wet, it should be, whether you're wearing it or not, it should be a priority to get that item dry as fast as possible. So you never know what situation is going to change and is going to require you to need to put that piece of clothing on. You want to make sure it's dry when you need it. So that is it for part 3A. This is my Bivouac Gear Loadout series, and this was my section on the colder weather month clothing. The next section in part 4 that we're going to cover is going to deal with food, water, and cooking implements, so stay tuned for that, guys. As always, this is No More Op 4. Stay safe. I'm out.